Hello, 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 hello. We're going to be doing some tarot readings and or looking at the current astrology, as is our usual custom as of late on Wednesday nights, and that will be up to all of you out there. Will people want tarot readings, or will we be looking at the astrology the entire evening? We shall see. Or perhaps a mixture of both, which is the most common. So I need just a minute or two to get caught up or to get set up, and then we shall be good to go. So let's see here. Yeah, I got to check my phone. I realized that I meant to check my phone right before. Right before I went live, and then I forgot all about it because I'm like, I gotta get live. I gotta get on there. I have to hurry the hell up and do this. You know, I can't stand delays. But we are now in, as I'm sure many of you know, Mercury retrograde season. So, of course, there are going to be delays and little missed things like that. That's just what happens at this time. So anyway, as you can hear, as usual, the audio is good. Donation link in the chat for those who may wish to donate through PayPal for tarot readings. Okay, there we go. That was the beginning of an advertisement. Don't worry about that. Let's see. Being live tarot readings and looking at the current astrology. Come on. Actually, we'll just leave it at that. Get the current astrology. Okay. Let's make sure that tweet looks good. All right, there it is. Now I just have to get the astrological data window positioned, and we shall be good to go. All right, so remember, tarot readings are $10 on any subject of your choice, as long as it doesn't involve anything unethical, like peering into the private information of anyone else. Astrology readings, birth chart readings are $20, and of course, I'll include a tarot reading with that if you would like. Those are more expensive because they're more time consuming, and yeah, basically because they're more time consuming. And I guess you could say maybe more is involved with them. Other than that, as usual, or as is so often the case between readings, we'll be looking at the current astrology. There have been some new interesting developments in the past couple of weeks since we last did that. It's actually 2 weeks ago. So at this point, sit back, relax, and enjoy whatever comes our way. And I will try to not let my incessant OCD distract me from doing the stream and also enjoying these things. Oh, and by the way, in case anyone's wondering, I'm doing what I did last week. I have my microphone positioned closer to me, like where I normally have it for most of my streams right now, so that the audio quality can be higher. But if someone wants a tarot reading, I will have to move it farther away for the duration of the reading to make room for shuffling the cards and all that. So at least this way we can have higher quality audio the rest of the time when I'm not doing any readings. All right, so let's dive into the current astrology. This is 10:13 p.m. Eastern Time, July 10th, 2019. And indeed, as I mentioned earlier, we have some interesting new astrological developments since our last stream looking at this 2 weeks ago. So let's just dive right in. First of all, the sun continues its transit through moody Cancer, and we just had the Sun-Saturn opposition about a day and a half ago. The sun opposing Saturn, which can be potentially very stressful at times, because that's like saying essentially the ego in conflict with authority figures or limitations and stuff like that. That can cause all kinds of delays and whatnot. The sun is, I guess, slowly moving out of that aspect right now. But of course, because of the ongoing Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, the sun is about to oppose Pluto, which happens in 3.5 days, 10:50 a.m. Eastern Time, July 14th, 2019. So that's also bound to be rather intense. Sun opposite Pluto is like issues of power, not wanting to face things, especially deep, dark things that maybe have been repressed or whatever. It's not going to lie, it's a stressful time, basically. This month really doesn't get less stressful until later on, like significantly later on, because even once the sun moves out of that opposition to the ongoing Saturn-Pluto conjunction, Venus is coming right behind the sun in Cancer and will also have to oppose Saturn and then Pluto. And we'll see a stressful number of days there as well, in all likelihood, or at least much greater chance of stress. And that in particular happens, let's see, Venus will be opposite Saturn at 1:33 a.m. Eastern Time, July 17th, so the night of the 16th, which is also right after the full moon, by the way, so adding even more to the intensity and restlessness. And then Venus will be opposite Pluto, 4:31 a.m., July 21st. So it really won't be until after that that we start to see, I guess, a reprieve from all of this. So now understand, Venus will be at 1640 of Cancer when it opposes Saturn, and 2144 of Cancer when it opposes Pluto. And right now, Venus is at 9 degrees 8 minutes of Cancer. So still a bit of time before that happens. But again, as I just said, in 6 days, the Venus-Saturn opposition, which is the first part of this, will perfect. So it's literally like as soon as the sun moves off axis to the ongoing Saturn-Pluto conjunction, Venus just swings right in and takes its place, ensuring that things will continue to be, I'm sorry, don't shoot the messenger, but stressful for all of us, more or less. But the good news is after that, things do clear up, and hopefully we have time to get to that at some point in this stream. We probably will. I should be here for a good 2 hours or almost 2 hours, maybe even longer, who knows. So that's some good stuff to look forward to. Let's see, what else do we have here? or I mean, it's good stuff to look forward to after the Venus opposition to the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. So let's see, what else do we have? Currently, the moon continues its transit through deep, dark, secretive Scorpio. And so you may notice that the energy, the mood is a bit intense right now, maybe a bit moody, a bit dark, all of that intense Scorpio vibe taking place. And equally, if not more relevant to that, I would say, is that earlier today we had the monthly moon Uranus opposition, with the moon transiting Scorpio and Uranus in Taurus. Moon opposite Uranus, meaning expect the unexpected, meaning shocking developments can happen, sudden things, the reconciliation of things that just don't want to be reconciled. And I have seen that indeed myself so far today, with plenty of unexpected developments that just, were either they resolved some level of tension or they were trying to resolve tension, but for the most part, they just stressed me the fuck out. But, that's what you have when the moon is opposite Uranus. But fortunately, as always with the moon, it's a very temporary, very transient aspect. The moon only stays in each sign for a couple of days. And so the moon is already, as I speak, moving out of that opposition with Uranus, and is currently actually in, and this just perfected about an hour ago, a trine with sweet, loving, beautiful Venus. And speaking of Venus, the moon formed a harmonious trine with that planet, and is still in it now, and will continue to be in it for a while, though it is, on its way out at this point. But that is sort of injecting some much needed harmony into the mix, at least for tonight, at least for the next few hours or so. So that's always nice to enjoy. Venus just makes everything delicious, even in difficult aspects a lot of times. But, it always depends on context, I guess. So let's see, what else do we have here? I think one of the most powerful things, and that we certainly talked about last time, but it's very important to bring it up now because it's happening now, is the Mercury-Mars conjunction. Now, well, I say it's happening now. Technically, it perfected 2 days ago, but it's still very much in effect, with Mercury at 4 degrees of Leo and Mars at 5 degrees of Leo. That energy is still very active. And so what happens when Mercury, the planet of communication, lines up with Mars, the planet of action, assertion, aggression? Well, there can be the risk for arguments and saying things without thinking, and being too impulsive, especially with our words and our communications, stuff like that. Now, complicating this further and making it even more potentially volatile is that this Mercury-Mars conjunction in Leo is square to Uranus in Taurus. And so we could just have Mars square to Uranus, and that would be explosive as hell already and very stressful. This is when accidents and injuries can happen. This is when intense arguments and conflicts can happen. But no, we don't just have that. We also have Mercury aligned with Mars square to Uranus, both of them square to Uranus. And so that's like making it even more likely that we're going to say things that we regret, or we're going to be too aggressive or angry with our words, our communications, also just our thoughts as well. Yeah, I'm not going to lie, it's pretty fucking intense right now. And, to add insult to injury further, Mercury is retrograde at this time, just went retrograde, and that's why it is moving so slowly, appearing to move slowly from Earth's perspective, and is making this conjunction to Mars last unnaturally long, I guess you could say. This isn't a common thing where Mercury will remain conjunct Mars for as long as it is currently, and especially being square to Uranus. I mean, this is just a stressful as hell time. Now, I knew, I knew at least for myself, I wasn't really, let me be honest here, I wasn't so much looking for like everyone else. I was looking for myself in general this year ahead. And I knew for myself that July was going to be a very stressful month. But as I continue to look at the astrology overall for everyone, I can see, yeah, it's actually gonna be a stressful month for everyone, not just me. Like it is stressful for me, particularly for very specific reasons having to do with my individual chart. But looking at it overall, it's stressful for everyone too. So, yeah, it kind of sucks, but just hang in there because, you can't avoid these things, astrologically, and astrology is just a reflection of life itself. So, the worst thing you can do is try to get away from it or avoid it. What you resist persists. So anyway, let's see what else we have here. Basically, what will happen with that Mercury and Mars conjunction, though, is that the Mars-Uranus square will perfect tomorrow, July 11th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And then Mars will move out of that square and slowly but surely approach a trine with Jupiter. That will happen in just over 2 weeks. Perhaps we can get to that later. And Mercury will continue to move backwards through Leo and eventually back into Cancer. It goes back into Cancer in a little over a week from now. So they are drifting apart at this time. So at least, at least as far as that goes, we've pretty much seen the worst of it, even though Mars still has yet to exactly square Uranus. But I guess I could say if we haven't seen the worst of it now, we're about to see the worst of it, and then it's gonna fade, thankfully. Though we still have some other concerns in the meantime. Now let's see. What did I just see though when I clicked on that? Oh, well, I guess normally I wouldn't bring this up, but it's fairly relevant here. Incidentally, looking at that Mars square to Uranus when that perfects tomorrow, at the same time that happens, because the moon will have moved to 18 degrees of Scorpio at that time, we will have not only a grand water trine between the moon, Neptune, and the sun north node conjunction, but we'll have a kite, what is called a kite formation with Saturn and Pluto, the ongoing Saturn-Pluto conjunction at the opposite end of the sun north node conjunction, forming that kite formation. So maybe it would be easier if I could just show you guys on my tablet, because this isn't exactly easy to explain with words. So let me just pull that up real quick. Let's see. One moment. All right, give me a new window. Come on, come on, come on. Okay, here it comes. Let's see, does it want to stabilize for me? Well, ready or not, here it comes. So you can see on screen here the kite formation that I was just speaking of. There we go, can focus. You can see at the top of the screen the ongoing Pluto-Saturn conjunction in Capricorn. Just let me see if I can hold this and, oh shit, what did I just do? Okay. Yes, the ongoing Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, opposite the Sun-North Node conjunction, and also forming this kite formation, this grand water trine to the Moon in Scorpio and Neptune in Pisces. And they call it a kite because, as you can see, it forms what looks like a kite. And so what does this mean astrologically? Well, it means a lot of things. So also you can see the Mars square to Uranus right there. So that's what I have pulled up, the exact time that happens. So a lot could be said about a kite. I don't think it's a good idea to try to go over every last thing, but basically, as far as the grand trine part of it is concerned, which is just the three-way trine, the three-way triangle formation, I've heard people say that that can often act as something that is so superconductive and so harmonious that the harmony of that and whatever it manifests as in our lives can distract us from other issues. So it may be very positive, but it might be almost so positive that it distracts us from other realities that need to be faced, other things that need to be looked at and taken into consideration. Now, when there's a kite formation, meaning that we also have that opposition there to one of the points on the grand trine, well, oppositions are one thing versus another. In this case, it's the Sun North Node conjunction versus the ongoing Saturn Pluto conjunction. So that's like, oh boy, I think that could be a number of things, but that's like the ego versus the power structure, or the ego versus limitations, and that sort of thing, and how it plays into the rest of the kite or the grand trine is a little bit beyond me, to be honest. I don't know everything, but perhaps we can look up some stuff about that later and sort of learn more about it together. But I've presented the most important stuff of what I do know about it right here, right now. So let's see what else we have. Let me continue looking at the data here. Well, speaking of that grand water trine / kite, the Sun-Neptune aspect of it is actually perfecting tonight at 12:30 a.m. to be specific, 12:30 a.m. on what is technically July 11th. And so the Sun-Neptune trine is generally very beautiful energy because it's like an illumination of Neptune, our dreams, our imagination, spirituality, creativity, the non-physical realm. So it's like lighting up our dreams and imagination and focusing them, maybe even focusing them into reality. You know, it's a great time for any kind of art or creativity or creative thinking. Great time to look at astrology, in fact, or tarot and all of these subjects. So that is a nice thing that's happening currently, you know, even with all the stress. At least it's a nice time for creativity and the imagination and also spirituality. It's a great time to be intuitive, especially with Neptune in its very long-lasting transit through Pisces. So let's see what else we have. Interestingly enough, speaking of trines, tonight also at 3:29 a.m., Mars will trine Chiron. So as Mars is getting ready to perfectly square Uranus, it will trine Chiron. So that's an interesting aspect because Chiron's all about our unhealed wounds and the healing of those wounds. And Mars is all about action, assertion, aggression. And so when those two get together and start working together very well and energy is flowing, it's like, wow, we suddenly become very active, very motivated, very willing to take action that helps us heal in some way, shape, or form, or helps others heal, or both. So we have that going on mainly tonight and into tomorrow, July 11th. All right, let's see what else. Where should we go next? Well, we are coming up on that full moon in Capricorn this month. That will be conjunct Pluto within a couple of degrees. And this full moon is also a lunar eclipse. And eclipses in astrology are said to be times when anything can happen. So, there can be a change of power. There can be things that seemingly break through into our dimension from other dimensions. And also, a lot of times there can be endings at an eclipse. And of course, we had one just earlier this month with the new moon. And now we're having another one with the full moon on July 16th. So that's the eclipse aspect of it. And remember, with eclipses, I've heard the idea that they can take effect up to 6 months prior or 6 months after the actual eclipse happens. I've also heard the idea that they mainly take effect 3 or 4 months following when the eclipse happens, that specifically. So there's different theories on that, but that's what we have. And with this eclipse being in Capricorn and conjunct Pluto, that's going to be rather interesting, because Capricorn, of course, talks about the power structure and government and banking and stuff like that. Pluto, in its own way, also talks about the power structure and power in general and authority. So it's a full moon where a lot of that stuff will be brought into play, brought into focus, both in our personal lives and in the world at large. And let's see, yes, that's July 16th, 5:30 p.m. So basically that whole day, July 16th, it's going to be rather intense, and issues of power, issues of structure, issues of government and authority are going to all be brought into play in some way, shape, or form in all of our lives. So let's see what else we have here. So it's actually right after that. It's later that night, as I mentioned earlier, the night of July 16th, early July 17th at 1:33 a.m. that we have the perfecting of the Venus-Saturn opposition. And so that will just be adding to the stress. Again, don't shoot the messenger, just being honest. Venus opposite Saturn is like, I want this now, or I want to do this now, or I want to experience this now, but I can't right now, because Saturn is the wall, Saturn is limitation, Saturn is authority, Saturn is saying, no, you can't do it now, you have to do it later. Saturn is responsibility. Saturn is taking in the long term, not just the short term. Saturn is the denial of instant gratification for the sake of long-term stability, doing the right thing and that sort of thing. So when we have Venus opposite Saturn, Venus wants to indulge. Venus wants to enjoy the pleasures of life, all that is sweet and beautiful and delicious. So when we have Venus opposite Saturn, you can see how it's like, we might want to enjoy ourselves right now, but we can't for some reason, or there may be a temptation to indulge in something right here, right now, to enjoy or try to enjoy something right here, right now, when we really know that we shouldn't, when we really know that for whatever reason, we should put that gratification on hold and do something else first. Like we should get our work done and then let ourselves enjoy things. And I think that might be the challenge for a lot of us when we have that Venus-Saturn opposition. I also think, or well, something I've heard at least is Venus opposite Saturn can be when we try to enjoy something that we normally enjoy, but we cannot. So there may be something in your life that you're used to doing that normally brings you pleasure, and you go to do it around that time, and it's just not really bringing you pleasure. And I would say that may be exacerbated if you haven't honored Saturn at that time by doing your work in whatever way that manifests in your life, by being responsible, by taking care of things that have to be done, that sort of thing, you know. No one escapes Saturn. That's the reality. And Saturn is also reality. And I should know this because, as many of you probably know by now, I have a Sun-Saturn conjunction. So I am very familiar with that energy. So what else do we have? Oh, and remember again that the full moon is July 16th, and the perfecting of the Venus-Saturn opposition is later that night of July 16th, but early July 17th, 1:33 a.m. All right, what else do we have? So on July 18th, while Venus is sort of at the halfway point between opposing Saturn and opposing Pluto, which again is going to be very stressful for us. Something that is more positive at that time is that Venus will at least trine Neptune, form a harmonious trine to Neptune, which remains in this sort of ongoing supportive sextile with the ongoing Saturn-Pluto conjunction. So Venus trine Neptune will likely, light up our imagination in a very sweet and delicious way, since that's what Venus is all about, indulgence in the fantasy realms and stuff like that. And there may even be some level of stability provided to that, since the Saturn-Pluto conjunction is still in this ongoing sextile with Neptune. But at the same time, that doesn't mean we get to just completely escape from the Venus-Saturn opposition. So, having to deal with that in whatever way that manifests in our lives, whether that means getting our work done before we let ourselves indulge, or delaying gratification till later. I think that the lesson or the challenge around that time, as Venus trines Neptune but is still in this opposition to the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, is to not give in to the temptation to get carried away with escapism and indulgence or overindulgence in fantasy realms, which is Neptune, and Venus is indulgence. It's like exploring the imagination and the fantasy realms and all of that is all well and good. And maybe I would even go so far as to argue that maybe even a little bit of escapism is all well and good, as long as it's in moderation. But we have to remember that with Venus opposite Saturn, we need to honor that Saturn influence, that Saturnian influence, by saying, okay, is there some aspect of reality that needs to be faced at this time, or that needs to be dealt with at this time? Is there some responsibility that I need to deal with right now before I can responsibly let myself indulge in, whatever sort of fantasy or escapism I'm wanting to indulge in? And again, this is all active on and around July 18th specifically. So The only other thing I would say with that is that's also not to be confused, however, though. We need to really make this clear with what is basically a form of self-hatred, because a lot of people will take what I'm saying here and say, okay, yes, this means that this is the perfect excuse to beat up on myself and make myself do things that I just plain don't want to do. That's not what I'm saying here at all. My advice to people is always to do what you want to do as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else or break any laws or anything like that. Follow your bliss, follow your joy, do the things that you are passionate about doing and that you enjoy doing. And yes, that means if you're tired as hell from working on something or whatever, and you just want to freaking sit down on the couch for a while, yes, that means do that. If you need that rest, then take it. So don't take what I'm saying here as sort of your excuse to indulge in more self-hatred, because I don't know how else to put this, but to just say it very bluntly, from what I have seen in humanity, a lot of people these days still have issues with self-hatred. A lot of people are very self-hating and they don't even realize it. And that, of course, comes from early childhood, because people have been taught to be that way. They've been taught that it's right to be that way for some, bogus reason or whatever. And so I think another big thing here with this Venus opposite Saturn and trine to Neptune is we have to be really, really honest with ourselves, where it's like, on the one hand, are we just escaping from reality that we need to face? Or are we being self-hating and slave driving ourselves and calling that facing reality, calling that being responsible and honoring Saturn? Because, well, I mean, I think ultimately at the end of the day, it is probably true that all Saturn really cares about is whether you get the job done, whether you do honor Saturn. But that doesn't make it okay if you honor Saturn in a self-hating way. Like, you need to be self-loving and honor Saturn by, being responsible and getting work done in whatever way that manifests in your life. But again, don't use it as an excuse to be self-hating. So hopefully that is all rather clarified. So yeah, that'll be like the ongoing challenge around July 18th. Okay, so after all that, I think after that little speech, I think I'm going to take just a little bit of a breather and check on the status of the stream. So give me just a moment here. I see my phone is now at 80%. Good to know it's charging quickly. Okay, everything looks good. So one moment. Okay. So what should we look at next? Well, after Venus trines Neptune, after that happens, the next major event is Mercury returns to Cancer, retrogrades back into the sign of Cancer, July 19th, 3:05 a.m. So even though for a time we've had our thoughts being inspired with the passion and boldness and spontaneity of Leo and the sort of dramatic boldness of Leo, at this time, things are going to settle down in the mental arena, in a sense, as Mercury retrogrades back into Cancer. Again, that's July 19th, 3:05 a.m. Eastern time. So that's interesting though, because even though, you know, even though Cancer is like a much more calm energy overall than Leo, whenever we have a planet retrograde, the signal of that planet is intensified significantly. So don't think that just because Mercury is going back into Cancer, that our thoughts and mental activity and communications are going to suddenly become quiet or calmed in any way. Oh no. Instead, well, like I said, it'll be interesting to see how this manifests in different people's lives. My strongest theory about it is that there's going to be a lot of intensity, but it's not necessarily going to always be expressed, or at least not necessarily expressed directly. And that might even be part of the challenge as Mercury goes back into Cancer, is to make sure that we are speaking clearly about our emotions, that we are communicating our feelings very effectively, because Cancer is all about feelings. And again, Mercury is all about communication. So our mind is going to be extremely busy, or our minds, the minds of everyone are so I don't even know how to say this. The mind of everyone is going to be very, very busy around the subject of our feelings and self-protection and safety and security and nurturing and all of that sort of stuff, that Cancerian energy. And I guess it's uncertain, or at least it's uncertain for me, just how much of that is going to be expressed. But I think it's important to express that, especially when there can almost be, I mean, this would be more like if we saw Mars in Cancer, but there can almost be, I would say, a danger of passive aggression. Like if you don't communicate how you feel while Mercury is transiting Cancer, then that may develop into passive aggression as a coping mechanism, which is extremely unhealthy, to say the least. And also remember to, communicate boundaries and stuff like that. Again, though, I think, I'm still thinking sort of the Mercury-Mars conjunction that we had, which is now beginning to fade. But nevertheless, when we have even just Mercury retrograde in Cancer, it's good to take these things into consideration. We also may find that we're thinking a lot about our home and family life, essentially. All right, so let's see. Let me think here. Where should we go next? Well, following the Mercury ingression back into Cancer, we have Venus opposing Pluto. The perfecting of that, again, happens July 21st, 4:31 a.m. So that'll be the last of that Venus opposite the Saturn-Pluto conjunction energy that we've been sort of dealing with, or will have been dealing with at that time. And when we have Venus opposite Pluto, again, we're going to be looking at power issues, this time especially in relationships, because Venus is all about love and relationships, socialization of all kinds, also about money. So there could be power issues involving money as well. Let's see, I've seen that described as like, the efforts to meet biological needs in relationships, because Pluto talks about biology and all things biological, essentially. It's the aspect of us that wants to indulge in things and be sweet and loving and experience the deliciousness of life, in an opposition to the aspect of us that is all about power and the deep, dark, unconscious realms, and intensity, and being all or nothing. So, passions and stuff like that can get a little out of control with Venus opposite Pluto, or maybe even a lot out of control if we're not careful. And yes, when it's in opposition, that makes it even more likely to manifest in the realm of relationships. So be wary of that around that time. You want to find ways, at least this would be my advice anyway, you want to find ways of honoring both Venus and Pluto. Honoring both planets or luminaries in any given opposition. So Venus opposite Pluto, I would say, okay, well, how can we both honor Venus by indulging in what we want to indulge in, or finding harmony or whatever, and Pluto by honoring issues of power or intensity, or being in touch with one's unconscious or one's own biology. I guess it can manifest as a number of different things, but it's like, don't try to think of it as either or. Try to think of it as like, how can we bring Venus and Pluto together? How can we find a solution for all, a win-win situation, as opposed to a zero-sum game? Zero-sum game is I win, you lose, or you win, I lose. We don't want that. We want a win-win situation. All right, so moving right along here. Later that same day, on July 21st, we will have a Sun-Mercury conjunction in Cancer at 8:33 a.m. Eastern Time. So whenever the sun lines up with Mercury, that is a strong illumination of our mind, our thoughts, our intellect, our communication. And so expect that day to be one where you may gain sudden new insights. You may communicate a lot. In fact, probably will. Expect your mental activity to be intensified. And especially, look at your own birth chart. If this aspect connects with planets in your own chart, like if you have anything at the end of basically any sign from Virgo till Taurus. So if you have anything around the end of any sign other than Gemini or Leo, this will affect you significantly, and especially if you have anything around the end of the sign of Cancer where this is taking place. Like if you have anything around 20 degrees of Cancer, or even early Leo, first couple degrees of Leo, this Sun-Mercury conjunction will affect that part of your chart very strongly. So look at your own chart and see how that may connect with it. Let's see here. Also, you know what? I haven't done this in a while, and we're not getting much traction tonight here in the stream. So I think as long as that's the case, and as long as my phone is done charging, we're going to have a fun little moments of my posting a story about this to Instagram, about this stream, in an effort to get more viewers. Let's see if that happens. One moment. All right, let's see if I can do this right. Nope, I did not include the flash. One moment. Hang on. Hey guys, I am live right now on youtube.com/poetic doing $10 tarot readings and looking at the current astrology. So you can come get a tarot reading if you like, or just watch me talk about the current astrological forecast for everyone. Hey guys, I am live right now on youtube.com/poetic doing $10 tarot readings and looking at the current astrology. So you can come get a tarot reading if you like, or just watch me talk about the current astrological forecast. Hey guys, I am live right now on youtube.com/poetic. Put that on my story, please. And all right. There we go. Maybe we can spice up this stream a little bit by doing that. All right, let's see here. If that doesn't work, I'll try also taking a picture of it and posting it with a link. And we'll see what happens. I don't know. I think people currently in the summer are like just, I don't know, busy enjoying the nice weather because remember during the months where it was colder, I got a lot of viewers, and as soon as the weather warmed up, like my viewers went down, which is fine. You know, I'm just here to do what I do, just doing what I do. But it's interesting being able to like notice that. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I need to get some viewers from the southern hemisphere where it's like winter down there right now. But anyway, let's just get on with things. Yes, let's see here what comes next. Next up, on July 22nd, we have the sun moving into Leo. Leo season officially begins at 10:50 p.m. that night. So even though, I don't know, this is funny because a lot of times people don't seem to acknowledge this, but I guess most wouldn't because they're not looking at the astrology like I am. But even though it officially becomes Leo season on July 22nd, most of that day, remember, we will still be in Cancer season. Like it's not Leo season until 10:50 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So keep that in mind. But indeed, that's when the sun goes into Leo, and then the 23rd will be the first full day with the sun in Leo, with Leo season. So, you know, Leo season is like the epitome of summer, essentially. You know, it's right in the heart of summer, you know, the middle season. We have Cancer, Leo, and Virgo being the seasons that are summer, at least in the northern hemisphere. Again, in the southern hemisphere, it's winter, but in the northern hemisphere, that's summer. And, you know, Leo exemplifies summer. It's all about, you know, the energy of Leo is all about being bold and having fun and getting out there and putting yourself out there and being spontaneous. You know, it's all about like, oh, it's time to, you know, for summer in particular, like it's time to have a barbecue. It's time to go swimming. It's time to get out in the sun. It's time to do all of these classic summer things. Leo season is the season for doing that. So like late July through late August, I guess, is the most popular, or the most, not the most popular, what am I saying? The most apt time for that. So again, that is 10:50 p.m., July 22nd. Leo season begins. And then not long after that, July 24th, 8:27 p.m., we have the Mercury-Venus conjunction. And so this is where finally the month of July stops being so damn stressful and we get like a reprieve. This is some much more nice energy coming in. Mercury, Venus coming together is like, okay, let's bring harmony to our communications. Let's be more understanding. Let's be more easygoing. in all of our social interaction. So, and also it's like, let's try to work things out, come to an agreement on things rather than fight about things. That's Mercury Venus. And that is, again, July 24th, 8:27 p.m. That energy will affect us all day on July 24th. Let's see, what else with Mercury Venus? I guess you could say that that's also like thinking a lot about the stuff that we enjoy. Mercury, our mind, Venus, what we enjoy, thinking about what we want to indulge in, thinking about our social lives, essentially. And with it being in Cancer, it's going to have those overtones of emotion, deep emotional meaning, comfort, security, self-protection, that sort of thing. Now, Mercury is still retrograde at this time, but I don't know. In this case, with it aligning with Venus, it's like, in a way that, well, that might almost work to our advantage. You turn up the signal of something that's very good, which generally, when Mercury aligns with Venus, it is good. Then it just becomes more of a good thing. And I know that some will say that there's the risk that too much of a good thing can be a bad thing, and maybe that applies. But I think, at least for the most part, it'll be quite the nice day for a change on July 24th. So, that's a Wednesday. I should be streaming that day, in fact. But if you have any plans, with friends or whatever that you can schedule on or around that day, make it on or around July 24th when Venus aligns with Mercury. So I feel like there was something just before that, though, that I wanted to maybe go over. Let's see here. Maybe not, or if there is, maybe I'll think of it later. Anyway, moving right along here, the very next aspect that we have is the Mars-Jupiter trine on July 25th at 8:22 a.m. So this is more good news at long last. Mars in a smooth trine with Jupiter, well, that's like the part of us that is all about taking action and motivation, working well with Jupiter, the part of us that's about bigger, better, more, positive thinking, optimism, knowledge, expansion, growth. So Mars trine Jupiter can often manifest as the urge to do a lot of things, to get out and do a lot of things. It can manifest as the power of belief, because Jupiter is all about beliefs and Mars is about, asserting oneself and power and stuff like that. What else? Mars trine Jupiter. That's like powerful positive thinking. That's like strong optimism and confident optimism and stuff like that. Maybe even taking action to explore more belief systems and philosophies and ideologies and stuff like that. So generally very positive energy there as well. Again, that's July 25th. That'll be in effect all day in July 25th. So we have Mercury Venus on the 24th and Mars Jupiter on the 25th. Both should be, generally speaking, very good days. There is a bit of an element of unpredictability, though, on the 25th, because as I see here, that day, along with Mars trining Jupiter, the moon will align with Uranus and Taurus. And so even though for the most part, yes, that should be a day with a lot of positivity, there's also an element of unpredictability with the moon's monthly alignment with sudden, shocking, unexpected, revelatory Uranus. So, if you're looking for stability that day, or if you're looking for stability in general, the 25th is not the day where you're likely to find it. You're likely to find erratic energy that day. So if you're looking for stability, pick a different day, I would say. But, the moon lining up with Uranus can also be a lot of fun, because unexpected things can often be what makes life, or part of what makes life, very fun. All right, let's see. Right after that, this is interesting. July 26th, 10:40 p.m. We have Mars moving into a quincunx with Saturn. So a quincunx, that is 5/12ths of a circle. That's a frustrating aspect. And I think it'll be frustrating indeed for many of us because whenever Mars connects with Saturn, well, unless it's in a harmonious aspect, which this is not, Mars says go, Saturn says stop. I've talked about this before, but here it is again. Mars wants to push forward. Saturn is like the wall that says no, it stops here. And so when it's a quincunx, a frustrating aspect, something that you can't quite get rid of no matter what you try to do, it could be very tricky that day navigating, like, do I push forward in this area or do I stop altogether? What do I do? My personal opinion is that the solution when it comes to these difficult Mars Saturn aspects, including a quincunx as this is to look at it like driving a car. Mars is the gas, Saturn is the brake. You have to know when to apply each one if you want to drive the car effectively. And so that is how you can integrate those Mars Saturn aspects in a positive way, that Mars Saturn energy in a positive way. And again, this happens on July 26th. So plan accordingly. July 26th is a day where you'll really want to know when to stop and when to go and when to slow down. All right. After that, getting close to the end of the month now, on July 27th, we have Venus moving into Leo at 9:53 p.m. And so, while Venus has been in Cancer, that has been such sweet and delicious energy. Venus in Cancer is all about the love of our emotions and feelings and whatnot. Venus loves being in Cancer because Cancer is already a sign about the emotions and about, this like nurturing, like motherly energy. And Venus being a very feminine, sweet, delicious energy is right at home in Cancer. And so I guess that's, despite the stress that we're experiencing currently and will continue to experience over the next week or two or whatever, that is part of our saving grace right now, I think, is that Venus is transiting Cancer. That's taking the edge off of things, at least to some extent, I think. However, what happens on July 27th, 9:53 p.m. Eastern Time, is Venus enters Leo. And when Venus enters Leo, well, to be honest, like I said, I don't know everything. There's a lot about Venus and Leo that I don't know, and so hopefully we can look up some more about that later. But what I do know, or at the very least suspect, is that when Venus enters Leo, she's all about being much more bold and going where the action is and much more interested in the sort of dramatic performance of things, So we can expect that like with our love lives and our social lives, even our financial lives. Venus is also money, around that time and for the next however many weeks following July 27th. The energy when it comes to our love lives and all of that will shift on July 27th. So I suspect that Venus in Leo is a lot like Venus in Aries, a fellow fire sign, where Venus is now like, ooh, let's go where the action is. Let's if Venus is manifesting as a woman, she's looking for the bad boy, so to speak. Now that's more, I think that would apply more to Venus in Aries than Venus in Leo, but similar in other ways, because it's like, well, now maybe Venus is looking for again, like say that Venus was a woman here. She's looking for the man who's very dramatic, very expressive, very proud, in that Leo energy. Leo is a very proud sign. Leo is ruled by the sun, and the sun reflects our ego in astrology, both for better and for worse. So Hopefully, we have time later to look up more about that, but that's a summary of at least what I know about Venus and Leo. So let's see here. Of course, if we wanted to, we could, press forward, and I am going to press forward with one more thing astrologically, but after that, since I want to focus, on what's happening currently and in the near future, we're going to go back and we're going to go over in even more detail what's happening now astrologically and in the near future, since it looks like we have the time. So the final thing I wanted to say before we do that is I want to address Mercury retrograde. So as many of you probably know, and as I mentioned earlier, Mercury did indeed just go retrograde. This is classically something that people are very much afraid of, and probably for little to no good reason. When Mercury goes retrograde, it is not a guarantee that everything is going to go haywire. It's simply a time where the signal of Mercury becomes louder. And it's a time where it's a much more ideal time for reviewing things and redoing things and tying up loose ends. If you run into problems or irritations during Mercury retrograde, that's only like the universe reminding you that this stuff was there to begin with and needed to be dealt with. Mercury retrograde serves us by showing us the areas of our lives that need to be tied up, that need to be solved, where there's some kind of problem. Maybe it's a mechanical or technical problem, involving technology a lot, because Mercury is very much associated with technology, something that needs fixed. And it's brought to light so we can fix it and then move on from it. Whereas if we didn't fix it, if we didn't address it, then it could be far more disastrous down the road. And that's what I think perhaps a lot of people, or at least some people, will try to do, is they'll try to sort of put their heads in the sand and ignore any problems that crop up. And then they just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And, the universe keeps trying to show them, whether it's Mercury retrograde or something else, and they still aren't listening. And then eventually, they're like hospitalized or something because the problem got so big and they weren't dealing with it, that was the only way they were going to listen. So that's what I have to say about Mercury retrograde. Now, as for how long Mercury will be retrograde here, well, let us see. I don't have the exact date right in front of me, but it won't take me long to find it. One moment. Okay, here we go. July 31st or August 1st. Let me zero in on it. Okay. Actually, maybe I can pull up the exact time right here. Yes, here we go. Mercury will go direct at 11:57 p.m. July 31st. So the very last day of this month, in the last few minutes of this month at 11:57 p.m., Mercury turns direct. Now, the issue with that, however, is that Mercury will still be in its shadow for the next couple of weeks when it does go direct. So it may still feel like Mercury is retrograde during that time. It often does. But once we are about halfway through August, let's see here. Yeah, roughly August 15th. Once we reach that point, Mercury will no longer be in its shadow, and we can feel like we're moving forward when it comes to our communications, our thoughts, our intellect, all of that Mercury stuff. We'll finally feel like, okay, now we're moving forward. We're making progress. That'll be around the middle of August. I'm sure we'll talk more about that as that time gets closer, as it approaches. But just remember, Mercury retrograde, I don't know. You'll find so many different opinions about it out there. I don't personally take it too seriously. Now, maybe I'm lucky I was actually born with Mercury retrograde, so maybe it doesn't affect me as much, but I don't take it that seriously. A lot of other people out there, including astrologers who have been doing astrology, been studying astrology for decades, they don't take it seriously either. Um, or they don't take it seriously in the sense of thinking it's like the end of the world. Instead, it may not be the best time for starting new things, but it could still possibly be a time to start new things if you're careful. If you're careful to check everything, double check everything, triple check everything, do everything right. Don't let yourself get frazzled, because that's the idea of Mercury retrograde. Is there's so much energy moving, so much communication happening that we can get frazzled. We can get overwhelmed with it. If you make sure that you're not overwhelmed, that you do things thoroughly, then hell yeah, start a new thing during a Mercury retrograde if you want to. I wouldn't exactly say it's ideal. I think it's much more ideal to review things and take care of things during a Mercury retrograde, and then wait for it to go direct, and especially wait for it to get out of its shadow before you start something new. But hey, if you really want to, if you're feeling a lot of excitement around starting something new and you just really, really want to, and Mercury's still retrograde, I say do it. I say you go right ahead and do it if you want to that badly. Just again, at least be extra careful while Mercury is retrograde. And hell, even if it does fizzle out or something goes wrong, it's not the end of the world. You can start it again, or start something else, start something new, whatever. Fuck it. So anyway, that's like a summary of, or I guess a rather thorough summary of everything coming up. Now let us look a bit deeper. Now that I've gone over all this stuff, we're going to, as we so often do, look up individual aspects and see what else we can find out about the ongoing astrological developments. So first of all, let's look at that Sun trine Neptune that perfects tonight at 12:30 a.m. and will affect us all night tonight and into tomorrow. Let's see what additional information we can find out about that. Let's see, this pops up immediately. Neptune trine Sun transit is known to increased interest in spirituality and to make one more compassionate, imaginative, and idealistic. Unlike the more challenging Neptune transits, the urge to follow a more spiritual path that does not have to result from some health crisis or from losing your way. Interesting. Let's see if we can pull up more on that from that site, astrologyking.com. It is not generally associated with having to give up on material things in life, which bring comfort and security. So there is simply more passion to get involved in religion, spiritual groups, or an occult field like astrology in order to gain more fulfillment in life and feel more in touch with the wider community and the other dimensions. Yeah, I have to say, despite the otherwise stressful energy active right now astrologically, delivering this tonight, talking about astrology tonight, it does feel it does feel perfect. It feels like the energy is very good for this tonight. Oh, I would also say, I think I forgot to mention this earlier with Sun trine Neptune, that it's a very good time, in my personal opinion, to watch a movie or to play a video game or indulge in any kind of fantasy realm like that, because again, Neptune is being activated by the sun in a harmonious way, and Neptune is all about the fantasy realms. Neptune also does indeed rule film. So when you watch a movie, you're invoking Neptune. And obviously that goes for TV shows and stuff like that too. Greater sensitivity to vibrations from other people and the environment allows this heightened sense of being connected, which may see you become more involved in charities to help those less fortunate than yourself. Or there may be some worthy cause like human rights or environmentalism, which allows you to express yourself and leads to sense of satisfaction or worthiness. The increased imagination is perfect for following creative or artistic pursuits because you can transform abstract or intangible images and ideas into something others can see or understand. You can more easily express your spiritual and caring side under this transit, as well as being able to pick up accurate psychic impression from others. So this is a great transit for relationships and should deepen the spiritual connection between partners. There's also a good chance of meeting an ideal partner, a soulmate you can really connect with. All right, so that's what we have with that site. And again, that's happening with the sun at 18 of Cancer and Pisces, or Neptune at 18 of Pisces. So if you have planets in your own chart around either of those points or aspecting either of those points, then this will be affecting you quite significantly. All right, let's see. What else should we go over? Actually, let's see if we can maybe dive a little bit deeper into Sun trine Neptune. Are there any other sites that want to give us some stuff about it? Transit Sun trine Neptune. Your imagination is stimulated today, and if you work in a creative field, you'll find an easy flow in expressing yourself through your art. I think this is for when the sun trines someone's natal Neptune, but it should basically still apply in this case to all of us. If you work in a creative field, you'll find an easy flow in expressing yourself through your art. You successfully capture the more subtle essence of your subject, especially in writing, photography, music, or theater. You're very effective in selling, marketing, or advertising anything, and can inspire other people with a slightly better version of reality or truth. You're prone to daydreaming and fantasizing, which is likely harmless, but be careful of neglecting your responsibilities in the real world. You're sensitive to the feelings of other people and can be a sympathetic ear for those in need. All right. And here's another interpretation of it on the same site. You exhibit great determination, confidence, and courage in your business efforts and will find an abundance of physical energy that you can direct in a focused and productive way. You easily persuade other people to support you and may find an important ally. You may receive benefits from past financial dealings or investments or increase the value of existing investments. You're very intuitive with other people and can accurately read their thoughts and motives, but watch using this talent to push your own agenda. I feel like that resonates less with me. Again, or that was from thefuturereminders.com. But again, I would say just remember, Sun trine Neptune is really like lighting up our imagination, our dreams, our creativity, our spirituality. That's what you mainly want to remember about that, and in a very positive way. So it's a great night tonight and a great day tomorrow for doing things involving those areas: dreams, imagination, creativity, spirituality. Let's see if we can find anything else about that before we move on to another aspect. Let's see what cafeastrology.com has to say about it. Here we go. Neptune transit sextile or trine Sun. At this time, a higher purpose to your life is what you seek, and you rely more heavily upon your intuition in order to achieve it. Again, I'm pretty sure they're writing this for when the sun trines one's natal Neptune, but this will more or less apply to all of us for the transit we're experiencing tonight and into tomorrow. You could find that your intuition is subtly enhanced this year. You might often find yourself in the right place at the right time, probably because your hunches are more likely to be correct. Actually, we're going to have to scratch that because I just realized from that interpretation, they're talking specifically about Neptune trining the sun, not the sun trining Neptune. I don't know how that got past me, but let's go to another site then. The astrologyplacemembership.com. Sun Neptune transits, longing for something more. The sun is the center of life and the source of life on Earth. The sun reflects a part of us that needs to quote unquote shine and express who we essentially are. This focal part of us represents our identity, vitality, and imbues our life with meaning and a sense of purpose. We all have a calling to fulfill our deepest purpose, and our passions in life make us feel alive, animated, and dynamic. Yes, indeed, indeed. What about the sun trining Neptune, though? Where the hell is it? Let's see. I think they were just about to get into it, actually. Apparently, I should be more patient. We want to get up every day and express our unique gifts. The sun is associated with the active creative force of life and is seen as an essentially masculine energy, which all of us possess. When Neptune transits the sun, there is a sensitizing of the self. Consciousness expands and boundaries fall away. Hey there, Kirks. Welcome to the stream. For most people, this can be a confusing time around their life direction, and there's a serious identity crisis. It denotes a period of self-doubt and confusion, and we are not so sure about our sense of worth, and losing a sense of who one is may lead to being exploited and feeling out of touch with reality. I don't know if this Sun-Neptune transit is going to be quite that bad. But anyway, yes, just as a reminder for people, I'm doing $10 tarot readings for anyone who wants one, and between readings, looking at the current astrology. I'll also do $20 astrology birth chart readings if anyone wants one. I have a question about my crush, please. Yes, absolutely. Just get the $10 my way, and I'll be happy to give you a reading on that. All right, let's see here. I'll just continue to go over this article in the meantime. Sensitivity, vulnerability, and psychic experiences. When transiting Neptune conjuncts, squares, or opposes the natal sun in our horoscope, it represents a duration in our lives when we are unduly sensitive, vulnerable, and moody. Yes, indeed, but we're more looking for the trine. Where is that? And actually, again, it's still about the freaking Neptune aspecting the sun rather than the sun aspecting Neptune. I swear these sites. I think we're going to have to just go to the next aspect because that's clearly not, every site wants to talk about Neptune connecting with one's natal chart rather than what we want here for all of humanity. Well, the very next aspect is Mars trine Chiron, July 11th, 3:29 a.m., which again involves the healing of wounds. That's tonight at 3:29 a.m. Eastern time. I don't know if we'll be able to find much about that, but let's find out. Let's just see. Because this is, a Chiron aspect, so not as much information necessarily available on that. Mars trine Chiron transit. Let's see, atlasastrology.com. Mars trine Chiron, willful creation / healing of fractured visionary reality. Well, maybe we are getting some good stuff here. We create from what we can imagine. This is a quote. We create from what we can imagine. We are living right now inside the imaginings of people whose mental illness makes them believe they are superior to other human beings. Wow. This video is part of the resistance, the new imaginings that we use to pull ourselves towards liberation. Adrienne Marie Brown, Beyonce's visionary fiction formation. Huh. Interesting. Ah, damn. The freaking text is so small on the site. And there's no way I can change it, it seems. Well, let's just try reading it anyway. Chiron has this quality of exposing the raw flesh of a sealed off wound to the open air. In this way, the pain is at the surface and more easily addressed. It aches while it is in process. The key here seems to be conscious engagement with what needs mending. Then Chiron and Pisces stitches wide open flesh back together artfully. Interesting. Which right now, Chiron is still in Aries. I don't know if it's going to retrograde back into Pisces again or not eventually, but if it does, it's not going to be for a while. Chiron is in Aries now. Let's see. Mars and Chiron are interacting with each in its own mysterious and complex. Well, that's not accurate for us this year. The Mars transits often have an early onset, even though Mars has a 2-year orbit around the zodiac. Mars' association with Aries seems to apply the quality of speed to his transits, so that they are often felt, experienced, observed, or witnessed well before they are exact or within orb. All right, so there you have it. If you've already been feeling this Mars Chiron stuff, expect it to continue. Hello, may I ask a question? Yes, absolutely. Just get $10 my way through PayPal or Super Chat, and I'll be happy to answer your question on any subject of your choice. And the PayPal link is in the description, and it's also in the chat. Yeah, so again, Mars Chiron has to do with the healing of wounds and sort of acting to heal those wounds, taking action, feeling motivated to heal wounds. And so basically, if you've seen that in your life recently, expect to see more of it, especially as that aspect perfects tonight at 3:29 a.m. Eastern Time. So it'll affect us tonight and all day into tomorrow. All right, let's see. Trying to sift through this article to the more relevant information. But they're just going on about other stuff now. So let's try a different site. These are all focusing on Chiron and not Mars Chiron. Let's see. Wait, maybe cafeastrology.com has something we can utilize. Also, I think real quick, just for the hell of it, I'm going to post just a quick picture to Instagram as well, saying that I'm live. So I guess I'll just do it through the camera app. Yeah, just in case we can get perhaps more people here. I guess everyone's busy tonight, or most people are. All right, here comes a picture. So we're going to do this. I should be here for at least another half hour. So hopefully we can get some more people in here and make things more interesting. One moment. Live on youtube.com/poetic heretic right now, doing tarot readings and looking at the current and upcoming astrology ! All right, let's share that with everyone. And see what happens. Okay. Maybe we can spice things up a bit. Back to Mars trine Chiron. Important note, the following interpretations are not applicable to natal aspects. Good. That's what we're looking for, finally. In other words, if you have Sun, Trine, Moon in your natal chart, interpretation offered here does not apply. Good. That's what we are looking for. Following short interpretations of aspects between the planets refer to aspects made in the sky at any given time and their possible effects on the population in general. They are best used for electional astrology purposes. Okay, which is basically what we're doing. So now if I can just find Mars trine Chiron on here, there's a long list here, so give me just a moment, please. We want Mars trine Chiron. So I suppose I could just search it, but guess I'm not going to do that. Okay, I've arrived at Mars. Now let's just find Chiron. Okay, here it is. Mars trine Chiron. Again, this is happening tonight. We may have the opportunity to take the lead or to take action regarding matters that lead to healing, cleansing, or teaching now. We can feel a sense of mission now. There is likely to be a feeling of fearlessness when it comes to addressing problem areas and self-confidence as well. There is a drive to take positive action, usually to defend or help others or ourselves. It's a strong period for cooperation and purposeful activity. So very cool. Let's see, is anything else aspecting Chiron right now as long as we're on here? Of course, the moon was quincunxing it earlier, but that's basically past us by now. Let's see. Apparently not, but wait. The very next aspect, however, also occurring tomorrow, and the previous one was technically tomorrow, is Mars square to Uranus at 2 p.m. tomorrow, July 11th. Let's see if the site has something on that also. I bet that it does. Yep, here it is. Mars square Uranus. All right. We have a tendency to take risks, to feel restless, and to act on sudden impulses without considering consequences. Remember, this applies mainly to tomorrow. This is coming right up, this Mars square Uranus. We assert our wills and individuality powerfully, and we are willing to fight for freedom. We might feel rebellious in the face of rules and regulations. particularly those we might feel are outdated or anything that requires us to conform. There may be changes in work schedules or life's circumstances could challenge us in such a way that we need to change our goals or actions. Energy is stop and go, and it can be hard to focus on only one activity. All right. But, that's not enough. Let's see if we can find out even more about Mars square Uranus. After this, I think we might skip ahead a bit to some of the more long-lasting things coming up, like Mercury retrograding back into Cancer and Venus entering Leo. All right, let's go to astrologyking.com. This one is actually written specifically for tomorrow, July 11th, 2019. Mars square Uranus transit gives a strong urge to break free from restriction and rebel against authority. A tendency to act rashly without regard for the consequences can lead to great disruption or conflict in your life. Awareness of this dynamic energy can instead lead to inventive and creative breakthroughs and a reinvigorated personal life. You must find an area of life in which you can tear up the rules and have some fun. You cannot restrain this erratic energy, so must express your crazy, creative, or inventive side in a safe environment. If you have a structured, hierarchical workplace, then you should find a creative outlet socially, sexually, or through a hobby. Yeah, another thing I heard about Mars square Uranus is this idea of it possibly manifesting as like something that has been building up for a time that has needed to break loose for some time finally does once Mars finally squares Uranus. Because again, Uranus is the reconciling of seemingly irreconcilable opposites. And, Mars is action, assertion, aggression, all that impulsive, intense Aries energy. Even you could say Aries and Scorpio that Mars rules. So if there's something in your life that's just been like waiting to sort of break loose or like just waiting to happen, whether positive or negative, it may happen tomorrow, basically, is what I'm telling you. Your need to be different and make your own mistakes needs to be nurtured now. Better to do this in private with an open-minded partner than in public through a rash action and the resulting ridicule and ostracism. Your goal is to get your kinky or dangerous desires out of your system in a safe way without upsetting others. An original outlook may lead to works of creative brilliance or scientific breakthroughs, but you should avoid impulsive actions and taking dangerous risks. Lack of attention and concentration can lead to accidents, especially as when driving or working with electricity or technology. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You want to be careful with like heavy machinery and stuff like that during a Mars-Uranus square. And especially also when we have Mercury retrograde at the same time. And Mercury itself will also be square to Uranus at the time that Mars is within an orb of a few degrees. So it may not be quite exact, but it's still there. So be very careful tomorrow. Let's see. Is there anything else that looks like it can give us more information about this? Astrotransits.com. Let us see. No, that's only applying to if Mars is squaring your natal Uranus. Damn. Well, perhaps then it's time to move on to Venus in Leo. Let's understand that energy a bit better. Venus in Leo transit. And again, that starts on July 27th. And Venus will be there for a number of weeks. Let me see just very roughly about how long. Until about August 21st, 20th, 21st. So actually less than a month. Venus will be in Leo during that time, but still for those 3 weeks or so, 3.5 weeks or so, this will be very important information to consider. Venus transit in Leo, astrosage.com. And it's specifically for 2019. Okay, here we go. Many mythological stories about Venus can be found in Hinduism. It is believed that due to the boon given by Lord Shiva, Shukrakarya rules over all the possessions on earth and heaven. On the other hand, according to the Adi Parva, Venus is considered to be the ruling lord of medicines and mantras as well. In Vedic astrology, Venus is considered to be there was a pop-up. Considered to be the auspicious planet and signifies art, love, worldly, and marital pleasures, etc. With its benefic effects, one gains marital and materialistic pleasures. In such a case, when Venus isn't auspiciously posited or weak in one's kunli, then that native fails to reap the blissful fruits of his or her marital life and suffers from problems arising in life. Hence, they must follow the remedies to pacify the malefic effects of the planet Venus, whatever. Let's get to the specific transit, please. Time of transit. Planet Venus is making its transit on 16th August 2019. Well, that's when it No, that's when that's in the middle of it. What is this site talking about? I don't know. Let's see. Leo. In this duration, Venus will transit. Oh, geez. It's giving it for individual signs. Let me see if it gives it for people in general. Sadly, no. But just for the hell of it, okay. I'll read this paragraph real quick. If there are any Leos listening, consider yourselves lucky. For Leo, in this duration, Venus will transit in your own sign and get posited in the first house, also called the Lagna. This house is also called the Tanubhava and reveals information about a native's personality and nature. During this time, you'll be known for your good deeds and reap the sweet fruits of the hard work done earlier. With the effects of Venus, you'll observe a positive change within your personality, and as a result, people will get attracted towards you. People can seek your advice on serious matters, and siblings will support you no matter what. You'll do something for yourself which will make you happy. There will be improvements in your marital life, although small disputes will remain present. Therefore, refrain from saying something rude which can make things worse. Talking about your love life, your partner will feel more attracted towards you. There are chances of you attaining profits if you belong from the field of art, music, writing, etc. during this transit. All right, whatever. Let's see if we can find something a little more relevant to all of us. And it says someone left during that. I don't blame them. That site is deceptive. Let's see. cafeastrology.com. Will they save us again? Yes, they will. All right, here we go. When Venus is in Leo, love is magnificent and grand. We take pride in love, and we are generous with our money as well. This is a warm-hearted, teasing, expressive, proud, and extravagant placement for Venus. Love is a bit of a game that is perpetual, as Venus in Leo is forever stuck in the romance stage of a relationship. We feed on attention, acknowledgement, validation, and adoration. Venus in Leo loves to be adored, pampered, and admired. Pride and passion are hallmarks of this cycle. We have a strong ego investment in our love lives during this period. The negative expression of this placement is overstating our feelings simply for the effect, as well as extravagance. Okay, all right. And just as a bonus, since they also include this information, as for now until the 27th, while Venus remains in Cancer, this is the energy for now, for that time being. When Venus is in Cancer, Venus is nurturing, protective, and self protective, cautious, and fertile. We experience many emotional ups and downs in love under this influence due to increased sensitivity and impressionability. We are tender, romantic, and attached. Cancer love is dedicated, warm, and devoted. We show our love through our devotion, care, and concern. We are affectionate and cuddly and are at our best when we feel safe and secure. Oh, well, isn't that nice? All right. So, um, oh boy, I know I said that I wanted to stay here longer, but I'm becoming a little unsure if I can because I'm getting tired and hungry. Let's see here. Is there anything else we should cover before I wrap this up? Well, let's see. I think what I'll do is I'll take a little tiny break, and then I'll come back and go over maybe a couple more aspects, or at least stay here a little bit longer, and then we'll call it a night because I don't want to end things just yet. So I'll return to the stream in just a minute or two. One moment. All right, I'm back. Feeling a bit refreshed and ready for more. So, let us next look at, let's see, we just had the sun opposite Saturn, and it will soon be opposite Pluto in 3.5 days. So, I know that technically this already happened on July 9th, but we're still basically in it right now. So, let's look a little more closely at the sun opposite Saturn, and we can look at then the sun opposite Pluto. And maybe, just maybe, there's some information out there about the sun opposite the ongoing Saturn-Pluto conjunction, which would be really relevant right now. I'm going to do a search on that and see what I find, and we can analyze that together. Let's see, sun opposite Saturn, Pluto. Hopefully someone has written about that. Doesn't look like it, but I did immediately get results for the sun opposite Saturn and Pluto individually. So let's look at those real quick. Both are from Astrology King. So sun opposite Saturn. Again, this is an aspect that we are still in. It perfected yesterday, July 9th. So it is fading right now, but we are still in it right now. Transiting sun opposite Saturn places limiting conditions on your life due to the actions of other people or circumstance. These restrictions can seem more difficult to surmount because you find it harder to express yourself. Saturn not only puts up barriers to progress, but also tends to block self-expression. Distance or separation between you and others can lead to a sense of rejection or isolation. Your need for companionship is at odds with other people's need for distance. Or it may be that you simply want to break from the burdens and responsibility that are being imposed on you at the moment. Normal daily routine seems more demanding and draining than usual, and likewise, you'll have to be more demanding of others and patient to get what normally comes easy. Your low energy and the resistance around you mean that this is not the time to be forcing your will onto others or trying to promote yourself. The buildup of frustration is best addressed by plodding along by yourself on some personal goal where you do not require the assistance of others. All right, fascinating stuff. Does that mean I should not be trying to promote myself tonight for this stream? I don't know, but gotta do what you gotta do, I guess. Sun opposite Pluto now, which again happens July 14th. It's funny, I noticed some people showed up earlier asking if they could ask a question, but as soon as I mentioned that they have to pay me $10, they mysteriously disappear. Very odd that. Sun opposite Pluto, July 14th, 2019. It's like, what, do people think they're just going to get things for free or something? Like, that's not how this world works, I'm afraid. Sun opposite Pluto transit can indicate some sort of crisis, either with self-esteem or a relationship or an event. This may be due to a self-destructive character trait such as addiction, spying, or stubbornness. In relationships, you may be the subject of or the perpetrator of manipulation, jealousy, domination, or spying. Events may include the breakdown of an appliance or car, theft, violence, or the destruction of possessions by people of a natural disaster. Yeah, it's true. This axis with various luminaries opposing the ongoing Saturn-Pluto conjunction, I'm not going to lie, is pretty brutal. It doesn't mean it's going to be disastrous or that disastrous for all of us, just it can be pretty intense for many of us. If something like these examples were to happen at this time, it is important not to be overly assertive, egotistic, or resistant to change. Things like this will more likely happen. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. Things like this will more likely to, I think it's supposed to say will be more likely to happen if you have been stubbornly resisting change or have been engaging in some habit that is destructive to yourself or others. Yeah, and remember, Pluto is also cleansing and purification, and the sun represents our ego or sense of self. And so, as it opposes Pluto, Pluto is going to try to cleanse, purify our ego or sense of self. Things like this appear to happen out of your control. In a way, they help you to realize that you don't need to have total control over others or your environment. Yeah, Pluto is also very much about control. Even though you may experience a bruised ego during this transit, there is also great potential for positives if you are open to change. Change may be forced upon you, or better still, you may instigate it, and this transit will be less disruptive. The aim is to transform for the better, to evolve your soul so that you may live a better life and experience more satisfaction. It is more common that this would occur through a close relationship, such as a family member, close friend, or partner. All right, so there you have it. But can we get anything on the conjunction? That's what I really would like to know. Let's see here. Maybe if I add in July 2019. Searching. No one seems to want to focus on this aspect, or at least the sun being opposite it anyway. Oh well. Obviously, the ongoing Saturn-Pluto conjunction itself remains a huge issue, and we've talked about that plenty in previous streams, so I'm not going to go over it in this one, but we'll definitely be talking about it more as it gets closer in January of 2020, because believe me, that is when intense things will happen on and during and around January of 2020. I can guarantee you that. So anyway, let's see what else we can look at. Actually, to be honest, I think I need to wrap this stream up because I'm getting pretty tired. I need to eat something so I can refuel myself. Otherwise, I'd probably be fine. But so yeah, thanks for being here and listening to me ramble on. We didn't get to do any readings tonight, but that's okay. That's all right. I'm happy to talk about the astrology and whatever else comes up. When we're not doing readings, so I'm perfectly content with that. So I should be back on Saturday as usual. Not sure what stream we'll do that day, like what the subject will be, but we'll see. Maybe something paranormal. I do intend to continue doing the paranormal themed streams. Let that be known. Just there's been other things popping up recently that I've wanted to talk about. I mean, if I had it my way, I'd probably stream like 5 or 6 days a week if it wasn't for how taxing of my time and energy it is. And we talk about all sorts of subjects, and there'd be 1 or 2 paranormal theme streams a week. But sadly, I'm not able to do that, at least not at this time. But so anyway, yeah, I'll be back on Saturday for that. Then on Monday for another Seth stream. And of course, next Wednesday for more live tarot readings. And maybe we'll, instead of looking at the astrology that night, we'll look at more of the Six of Wands card specifically, like we did last week. So yeah, that's been fun. Remember, I typically do these live tarot readings on Wednesdays, usually Wednesday nights. $10 for a tarot reading, $20 for an astrology reading, astrological birth chart reading. Can give you lots of insight into your personality. So feel free to come back anytime if you want one of those. If you're like watching now and you want to come back and get one of those readings later, Wednesday nights, that's usually when these happen. So thanks again for being here, those who have been here, and you watch when this is not live, and have a great night. Bye for now.